Inhale. Exhale. Swap sides. Focus at the third eye. Inhale. Hold the breath, root lock, third eye. Exhale. Breathe naturally. Prakasha, breath of light. Inhale in 7 equal parts through the nose. When you get to the top, hold the breath and visualize a bright light emanating from your third eye. Hold the breath for as long as is comfortable. And then exhale through the nose, bringing your attention back down to the base of the spine. And then continue. Inhale in 7 equal parts. Six more rounds, 7 in total. Shine that light all around you, far, far, far around you across the universe. Following the direction of the breath, of the energy, starting at the base of the spine and moving up with each sip of air up to the third eye, holding and shining that light all across the universe. Powerful, powerful light of the portal of your third eye. Once you've completed your 7 rounds, breathe naturally, keeping your gaze inwards. Brahmari, taking your index finger on your eyelids, your middle finger just above your nostrils, your ring finger above your lip, and your pinky above your chin. Thumbs in the ear, and hum for around 2 to 4 minutes. Taking deep breaths in through the nose, and then as you exhale, hum, making a gentle humming sound to clear your own energy field. Bring the air, bring the energy down to the root chakra and create your sound all the way from the root, drawing up the sound to your throat. Following the next exhalation, bringing your arms back down, keeping your gaze inwards. Take a few natural breaths here. Prepare for Shiva Kriya 1. Hands into Trident Mudra, 3 fingers pointing upwards, pinky and thumb towards each other, elbows bent at the level of the ribs, palms facing forward, trident facing forward. We're going to inhale twice through the nose, inhale in 2 parts through the nose as we open the mudra to the sides, and as we exhale through the mouth in 2 parts, shh, shh, we're going to inhale and the mudra is going to open out. So inhale, the mudra comes in towards the chest. Exhale, the mudra goes outwards. Shh, 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 shh. Focus at the third eye and find your rhythm. Shh, 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 shh. On the outward breath, pump at the navel twice to match the outward breath. Shh, 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 Focus intently at the third eye. Shh, 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 shh. This is a strong Shiva Kriya designed to help us transmute, purify old, dense, karmic and traumatic energy, to draw up and purify, release, cleanse old, stagnant energies that no longer serve us. Shiva will enable us to come into silence, to stillness. And from this place, we can observe our inner world. We can hold space for the purification of our burdens. We can liberate ourselves from those karmic bonds, the traumatic burdens, and be free. Shh, 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 shh. Focus intently at the third eye. Shh, 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 shh. Allow your body to flow with the movement of this Kriya. Shh, 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 shh. Allow yourself to drop into this Kriya deeply transmutational, deeply purifying Kriya. Strong breath, strong pump on the outward breaths. Shh, 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 shh. Whatever is arising, allow it to come up and be released through this Kriya. If you are aware of what you intend, what is ready to let go, to be transmuted, call this forward. Call this forward to be transmuted in the fire of your solar plexus, in the energy of Shiva. Allow yourself to come to the center point of the universe. The force, the stillness, the power that exists at the center point of the universe. The singularity from which everything emerges. Allow the energy at the center of the universe to transmute your old energies, your fears, your doubts, your anxieties, your worries, your karma, your burdens. Give them up to the center of the universe. Allow the breath to purify. The breath is a portal to Shiva, to the center of the universe. Strong trident mudra, strong focus at the third eye. Go back to the center from which everything emanates, from which everything arises. Take those burdens, the karma, the stagnant, dense, old energy back from where it came. Return it to the center of the universe. Strongly focusing at the third eye, fiercely, intently focus at your inner portal. Become Shiva. Become Shiva. Become Shiva. Exhale. Trident mudra, facing forward. Eyes closed, gazing intently at the third eye. Breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. Embody the energy of Shiva. Release the mudra. Palms facing upwards on the knees. Breathe naturally. Relax the face, the arms, the shoulders. Staying intently focused to the third eye, we move to Saraswati Kriya. Invoking the transcendental wisdom of Saraswati, opening that channel through the third eye, through the crown, opening to receive the wisdom, the guidance, the creative intelligence of the universe, of source, of our higher self, calling in the transcendental wisdom. Thumb to pinky, simultaneously on both hands. Ara. Thumb to ring finger. Fat. Thumb to middle finger. Sa. Thumb to index finger. Na. Back to the pinky. D. Thumb to ring. D. Thumb to middle. D. Thumb to index. D. Ara Fatsana Di 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 Di. 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 Ara Arafatsana di 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 Arafatsana 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 di 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 Arafatsana di 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 di. Allow the mantra to get a little bit softer, a little bit quieter. Arafatsana di 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 Arafatsana di di di. Allow the mantra to come to a whisper and then to silence. Allow the mudra to still keep going. And then allow the mantra to build again in volume. Arafatsana di 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 Arafatsana di 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 Arafatsana di 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 di. Slow the mudra down for a few rounds before finish. Keeping the mudra going, slowing down the mantra. Arafatsana di 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 di. 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 Drop the mantra, keep the mudra for a few more rounds. Keeping the focus at the third eye. And then release the mudra. Allow the mantra to dissolve into silence. Take a few deep breaths and stay in silence, stay in meditation for as long as you feel comfortable. And finish with one Om.